Remember your first love? You remember those feelings that just filled up your chest and seemed to burst throughout all of your body? Well, let me tell you about my first love. It was the sound of her voice that first entranced me. It could be sweet and lyrical, or it could be harsh and strident and powerful. But it wasn't just her voice. It was the way she looked. Soft, graceful shoulders, leading to a narrow waist, and wonderful hips, and a long, slender neck that just longed to caress. Yes, fellow Toastmasters, I was totally smitten, sound and sight, to the extent that I keep my love in a box and only let her out on special occasions. And I have her under the table. Of course, I'm talking about violin. When I was 6 years old, my parents had these things. They were black, they were round, they were about this big. They were made of vinyl. And you put them on a thing that went around and around, and sounds came out. And I heard the sound of Nathan Milstein playing the Brahms Violin Concerto, and Jascha Heifetz playing the Beethoven Violin Concerto, and Yehudi Menuhin playing the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto, and I was smitten. At 6 years old, the only thing I wanted to do was to play the violin. Now, the thing about playing the violin is that there's this one little thing called practicing. And I wanted it all. See, just like in a relationship, I wanted to have a loving relationship, but I didn't want to have to do the work to get there. Isn't that the case so many times? So finally, a teacher appeared. And you've all experienced the awkwardness of that first date when after finally achieving the connection with your heart's desire, that first date doesn't go quite the way you think. So that's kind of how it went. But how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. So we practice scales. We go. And with practice, and practice, and every relationship is filled with ups and downs like a roller coaster. There were times of great connection, times of great passion, times when I just couldn't get enough. And to this day, my sister claims PTSD from all the times when I would spend late at night practicing. And unfortunately, it wasn't until I left that it got to where it was barely tolerable. I heard an old fiddler player once told me, "What do you expect when you take the back end of a horse and scrape it across the entrails of a cat?" But I switched to synthetic strings because I did feel sorry for the cat. And when I was ready, a teacher did appear. After many years of betrayal, many years of abandonment, I found a teacher. Her name was Betty Goldblatt. She played with the New Jersey Symphony. And this violin, I'm in a relationship with an older woman. This is Suzanne. She was born in France, in Lyon, in 1881. So she's a little bit older than I. And my teacher and I went to a violin shop in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which was like the eHarmony of its day. And they kept bringing out violin after violin, and I would play it, and she would listen. She would play it, and I would listen. And They just weren't the right one until she showed up. And then I knew she was the one for me. That was in 1973. And I've had an affair with this instrument ever since. And throughout the rest of these speeches, I will tell some of the ups, some of the downs in my relationship with this instrument, my betrayal to other instruments, including the banjo. But that's all for later. Nowadays, I like to play